And it seems like we speak a lot about women, right? And yes, we do, because for many times we see and observe not just the strengths, but the challenges that women face on the African continent. And in order to sort of slowly remove some of the social ills that we are part of on a daily basis here on the African continent, it's women that we need to support, the same women who support us, the same women who seem to be the pillars of our homes, the pillars of our villages, the pillars of our community at large. And across the continent, we see that it's the strength of women that really allows for the flourishing of ourselves and our societies in many different ways. But even in those strengths, women still find themselves at a large disadvantage. I mean, Ben and I have our own views when it comes to that. As a woman myself, I feel like it is in individual protest to say I am not a rock, simply because women don't stand as the rocks and the pillars of our communities from my observation by choice, but they stand there because of a lack of support elsewhere. And because if without women if we don't become the pillars, then the communities will definitely break down. And so in a sense, we step in a world where nobody else is stepping in for us, in a world where we're left alone and left without the support, but also with the external pressure sort of coming against us. So not only are we the pillars trying to keep the communities afloat, but at the same time, it feels like we're being punched in the gut at the same moment. And that's why in personal protest, I'm like, I'm not a pillar. I'm not a rock. I choose to be a human who also navigates her human experiences without these particular societal expectations of me.
That would be a convenient thought to say that, because for many women, they don't have a choice. I don't have a choice either. Let me just making an example quickly, so I can give context to what I mean. I mean it in a sense whereby, our mothers didn't have a choice but to become those people who they had to be there for us. I mean, I was raised by a single mother for a long time, and she was the only support that we had in our lives. Yes, there was no one there for her, and I'm not excusing the absence of my father, because I felt the ramifications and the consequences of being a fatherless man. But if my mother wasn't there, and I don't think it was something voluntary that she could volunteer, or she could say, well, I don't want to do this. She just innately had that way of just being there for me. Did I deserve that? I don't think so. Was she supposed to give it to me? I don't think so too. I don't think she didn't have an agency. She shouldn't have an agency to have walked away from that situation, but she was there. And I note that, and I think it's remarkable that you have women that actually do that. I prize those women, I hold up those women, and I say they're wonderful to have them in our lives, and it's fantastic that we've had that privilege for them to help us through the obstacles that we've faced in our histories.
I agree with that completely. In fact, I can relate completely, and that's why I'm saying it's actually not, neither is it a privilege or a choice, because even today we still find ourselves in those very circumstances. I, exactly like your mother, am a single mother myself, and without that external support, I have to stand there as the pillar. But the protest is not in being the pillar or standing up for, the parts of life that I have to step up without the support. It's in saying, even within these circumstances, I will find a way to not just be typecast as a pillar, but to also be seen in society as many other things outside of that. But hey, we're having this conversation together. We have on the line with us Linda Mupupa, Public Relations Executive and TEDx organizer, exploring how community support can be a powerful force for healing, growth, and lasting resilience, especially for African women. Linda, thank you so much for your time. I'm sure you heard a little bit of Ben and I's debate. I don't even think it's a debate, because in many ways we're agreeing with one another, just from very different perspectives. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, good morning to you guys. No, I definitely was listening in on what you guys were saying, and I have to agree. Women are definitely the pillar. We have no option but to be the pillar or the backbone of our communities, be it the general community or your very close community, and that is your family and your friends. So it's really imperative that women create a sisterhood of some sorts where you can actually, gain strength, draw strength from other sisters. And that is why it's important that we attend what is women empowerment event. Somebody once said to me, they don't see the benefit of attending a women empowerment event where you just pay 300 Namibian dollars and you listen to people speak. But that is underestimating the power of storytelling. Women actually heal when they listen to stories. They kind of feel they belong somewhere when they relate to another story of pain, of healing, and just sharing each other's journeys and experiences is a method and a way for women to heal and tap into another woman's strength. So it's really, really important that as women, we also just draw from each other, create communities that benefit all of us, of course. It's always really important that women have somebody that they can lean back on. And in many cases, that person that you lean on is always a woman, all right? So it's a community for women is not optional. It's a given and it is a must. It can always, like you said, as a mother, you have to stand in and sometimes take care of your kids. In a household, when a child is sick, it's almost always ever the mother who stays home and takes care of that child, whereas the father is not willing to put in leave for the day. You understand? Once we realize our power as women, we can do so much more.
The term community has really taken a huge change, Linda. If I can speak just about how I was raised, and I've seen the stories of, how women before that were raised, they always used to come together in ways that were beneficial for the community at large. But even in those sense of communities, it always seems like women put themselves at the back burner. I'll speak for myself and say, growing up in a place where a woman was, my mother, a cornerstone of this particular community. In fact, when you drive into or walk into my community, my mother's house is the first house that you'll come across there. And every day was like a rotating door at my own house where women were coming in and out and men were coming in and out, all of them seeking help, seeking attention, seeking counsel from my mother, and many of them just trying to help other people as well, and not particularly also trying to help themselves. And I'm really interested in the sense of community for self-preservation and not only for community preservation. So keep that in mind. We need to take a break, and I want us to come back and explore that, because that's why I say I don't want to be a rock, because I also want women to use our own power for the preservation of self, including the preservation of others. But it seems like most of the time women focus more on the preservation of others and keep their self-preservation in the back burner. It's 20 minutes past 10 Central Africa time. We're speaking about the power of community for African women. Still joining us on the line is Linda Mupupa, who'll continue this conversation with us in a bit.
On the Move, weekdays, 9 a.m. to midday. Only on Channel Africa. #On the Move.
Hey, I was very ill very recently, very, very sick, and I was in hospital. And what happened is that I saw women just like becoming this parade of life source in my life, actually, who walked through the doors of that hospital that I was in. It was the woman in my life. Who were the ladies that were calling me? It was the woman in my life, my mother's life, was sending me messages of encouragement, of faith, of strength. And I think about it when we speak about this conversation. If it wasn't for all those women who are praying for me, giving that moral support, even now as an adult, I don't think I would have recovered in the same way. Shout out to my girlfriend who came in and out every single day. Like Palesa was saying and Linda was saying, she actually left work, her lunch breaks. She came to the hospital to make sure that I'm well fed, to look out for me. So, this rock thing, I do see that sometimes we use it as a negative connotation, but I have to say, I needed those pillars in my life. I needed those women in my life, and I needed that community of women. Where were the guys? Because I was in hospital alone as a man, Not even just one guy came through. Just one guy came through and came to see me during that particular period. So it says a lot about women. But you wanted to ask a question, and you can go back and ask that question.
Yeah, well, we still have on the line with us Linda Mupupa, who's joining us in this conversation, speaking about, you know, the essence of community when it comes to, you know, women on the African continent. And the way I was going with that, Linda, is that we speak a lot about community support of women in our lives. And women are these pillars of strength. And when I was relaying the story of the various women that came in and out of my home as I was growing up, all the things that they came there to solve were always issues of other people and hardly ever issues of taking care of self. And in my personal protest of saying I am not a rock, I am saying that yes, there are things that I have to do because I don't have a choice, and I still do have to be that pillar. But sometimes I want to use that strength of a woman for self-preservation. And I want to take a look at that, using community for the self-preservation of women. Are we doing that enough, or do we continue to keep ourselves in the back burner and burn out?
No, you know what they say about spreading love, kindness? It's sort of like sharing perfume. When you share perfume, a drop will definitely fall onto you. So this is what I think happens here. You know, our thriving and survival is deeply interconnected with other people. So what we do to help raise and help strengthen others, and also perhaps just alleviate their problems, it equally also helps us alleviate our problems. If you open up your heart to sharing, to caring for others, it does something to you. You know, it kind of just lifts a burden off of your shoulders when you're.
It does not, Linda. I don't want to lie to you. It really does not. Not for me, anyway. I'm sorry. Please do continue.
That is why. But then again, that is why we've got sisterhood organizations and initiatives where we provide mentorships, you know, where we provide emotional healing for sisters. And of course, at these events, we also give practical resources and suggestions and advices to other women to preserve your own sanity, your own strength. And that is why also it's important that once in a while, a woman steps away from the usual. You know, we've got so many overlapping challenges as women. You know, there's so much that you have to take care of at times that you forget to take care of yourself. But there's a reminder for all women to take some time out, step out of the usual schedule, step out of the busy schedule, and then just, you know, enclose yourself in a space where you feel safe, where you can actually just be yourself, you know, reintegrate into who you really are, your true identity. Find and explore who you really are. And that is where your strength comes from. Unfortunately, society doesn't always, especially in a setting where you're a mother or a wife, it doesn't always award you the opportunity to step away from your identity as a mother or as a wife. But it's imperative that you realize that you need to close down on other people at times, and then, of course, find your strength. It could be, you know, delving into a book, an interesting book, taking a walk alone. There's so many things that women can incorporate into their daily lives to find themselves and then also find that strength from within. I understand, Palesa, that it could be draining. You're always the giver, and we know that takers don't know when to stop. So it's your prerogative. It's basically you have to know when to stop giving, because takers never know when to stop. All right. So there are so many opportunities that we've got digital platforms, digital sisterhood communities that also teach us on how one can just step out and try and find yourself again, or just try and find your strength. So we need to explore the different options, the different opportunities, and the different platforms that allow us and award us the opportunities to find strength, be it from other sources such as the Bible, be it from sources such as watching, for example, Mpumi sharing her story. There are so many platforms. There's an array of platforms where we can explore as women to try and find ourselves and be that pillar for yourself and not just the pillar for others.
Yeah, I think I get what Bali is saying to a large degree. Do these gatherings take us away from that stereotype of what we want women to be in our society in terms of that imposition that we have at times to say, you are in Bogota, you can deal with it. You are the mother of this house. You must do these chores. Are we not entrenching that to a certain degree by saying the only place that women find that particular getaway is in that particular community? But I'll tell you why I think also it's a two-ended question, because that community of women is also important, because without that group of women, some women can't get out of that abusive environment. Some women can't get out of that moment of getting advice from outside of that little space, which is their home. Maybe that avenue of being with other women can also be a great escape away, not just from a momentary struggle, but permanently getting out of a bad situation.
Exactly. I mean, when you are in a safe space with other women, you are drawing from their wisdom. You are learning from their experiences. And then the art of storytelling is so magnificent that you start feeling as though you belong. You start feeling as though you're not the only one going through something. Like, come to think of it, now that you have highlighted it, it appears that these are the only spaces where women can get away and find themselves. But if that is the case, then so be it. Women attend more of these events then, there's so much happening now. You could do it digitally, you can do it across borders. The world has become a whole village, a global village. So there's nothing that is holding you back anymore from attending as many events as possible that allow you to share a space with women who revitalize who you actually are. Like I say, if you have a chance to get away and join other women in a platform that empowers you, that rejuvenates and heals you, go ahead and make use of that platform. Not always do you have a place to go to escape your real life, but apart from this space. So make use of it, be it physically, be it digitally. Listen, women, the spaces are available. Let's use them.
Yeah, I agree with you there on that one. It's 10:30 Central African time. We have to leave it there, unfortunately. But thank you so much, Linda, for giving us your time and giving us your thoughts on this one. Where can people find your space and your platforms and what you do as a public relations expert, but also in your public speaking?
Check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and X, formerly known as Twitter, for the TEDx Vineta women platforms as well as the TEDx Swakopmund platforms. And I can guarantee you that you will be finding a safe space for women where we passionately pioneer leadership amongst women, where we encourage each other to break the highest of glass ceilings. So if you're a woman who needs a safe space, check out the TEDx Vineta women as well as the TEDx Swakopmund platforms. And then, of course, the formidable Linda on Instagram.
Thank you so much, Linda. That's Linda Mupupa, Public Relations Executive and also TEDx Organizer.